Hello. This is a video footnote to episode 3 of the real story of the Bible. In this footnote, I will be talking a little bit about the Old Testament character of Joseph, the Israelite forefather Joseph. To give a little information, throughout the series that I'm producing, almost everything I include will be academic consensus. If you're interested in knowing whether I'm sticking with the legitimate story of the Bible, feel free to research it. I have not included references, but almost all the information will be easy to find if you just look it up on Google. Anyway, if I include information, as I have with the story of Joseph, if I include information that is not academic consensus, I'll be producing a footnote like this one, in which I explain why I have included that. So, about Joseph. There are essentially two pieces of information that I have given in this video about the Old Testament Joseph. The first one is that his story is unlike that of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and some of the other forefathers, in that it does not have a pre-existing root of oral tradition in the Canaanite community. Essentially, that it was invented by scribes during the exile period and decades thereafter to facilitate the out of Egypt pseudo-history you find in the Bible. That piece of information is academic consensus. You can look that up. It's pretty well accepted. Joseph was made up by scribes to fill a void in the history they were creating. The second piece of information I gave was that a part of this history that they were creating, they included aspects of the life of the real Egyptian priest Imhotep. I actually did not get this from the academic community at all. The place I came across this idea was actually from apologetics. There is an area of apologetics that attempts to prove the historicity of the Old Testament by drawing connections between stories about Imhotep and stories about Joseph. In some cases, the stories do meld quite well. And I believe this was the purpose in adding these aspects of Imhotep to Joseph, because the ancient Canaanite/Israelite community would be familiar with at least some aspects of Imhotep history and legend. So when they heard some of these facts that are now being applied to Joseph, then they could say, I've heard of this guy. And it wouldn't seem like it was a completely new story being made up, and it would seem more believable. I'll give you a few examples of the similarities. Now, there are quite a few differences between Joseph and Imhotep, but a few of the similarities are: Joseph was a slave in Egypt who, because of his extraordinary talents and abilities, wound up being basically second in power in the kingdom, right under Pharaoh. Imhotep was an Egyptian commoner who, because of his extraordinary talents and abilities, wound up being basically second in command in the kingdom under Pharaoh. They were both mystics and dream interpreters. Joseph predicted that there would be 7 years of surplus, followed by 7 years of famine, and he directed that storehouses be built to hold the surplus in order to feed the people during the famine. Imhotep, I don't remember there being a prophecy part of this for Imhotep, but Imhotep did order storehouses built around the nation so that in years of surplus, the surplus could be collected and stored and then released back to the people during famines, so that the nation wouldn't starve. So There were other similarities, there were differences, I don't remember all the details, but they were enough that I believe it is completely reasonable to say the Israelite scribes who were making up this story were familiar with some of the tales of Imhotep and decided to include them in it. Anyway, I think if you choose to research this, you will agree with me that even though it's not academic consensus, it does make sense to say that this was the case. And I hope you are enjoying the video series, and I hope you will subscribe if you haven't already, and like them, and come back and watch further episodes. And if you see any more footnotes, just be aware they're giving usually some interesting and important information to the videos. So if you see some footnotes like this one, watch those too. Thanks. Bye.